In a world of unanswered questions and unsolved riddles, one clue can change everything. You're listening to The Last Clue, where mysteries don't just get solved, they get experienced. I'm Jessa, guiding you through the shadows of each case. What you hear might disturb you, what you miss might deceive you, and what you discover might surprise you. Ready your notebooks and sharpen your instincts. The most observant among you will earn immortality on our wall of fame. The mystery begins now. The Vanishing Guest, Episode 1, A Room with No Exit. Welcome, dear listener, to a place where time stands still, where the walls whisper secrets and shadows linger long after they should be gone. Tonight we check into Willow Crest Inn, a charming bed and breakfast nestled deep in the countryside, a place where guests arrive with the promise of rest, but not all of them leave. Lena Carter was one such guest. She arrived on a rainy evening seeking nothing more than a quiet retreat. She was polite, reserved, and, according to the innkeeper, completely ordinary. But by sunrise, Lena Carter was gone. Her room was locked from the inside. Her suitcase remained untouched. And yet, there was no sign of her anywhere. A disappearance with no explanation. A guest who seemingly vanished into thin air. Or was something waiting for her in the darkness? It was just after dusk when Lena arrived at the Willow Crest Inn. The house stood like a relic of another time, its wooden beams worn with age, ivy curling up the sides like grasping fingers. The warm glow of lanterns flickered from within, promising comfort, despite the eerie emptiness of the countryside around it. Margaret Hell, the innkeeper, greeted Lena at the door with a practiced smile. She was a woman who had spent years perfecting the art of hospitality, but even she seemed uneasy that night. Perhaps it was the storm rolling in. Perhaps it was something else. Margaret led Lena through the narrow halls, past antique furniture and faded portraits. The air smelled of lavender and something more subtle. Old wood, dust, something Lena couldn't quite place. She was given room 6, a cozy chamber at the end of the hallway. A room with a history. A room where guests rarely stayed for more than a single night. The Willow Crest Inn had stood for over a century, its walls collecting stories like dust in forgotten corners. Local legends spoke of strange occurrences, guests who had heard voices in empty rooms, doors that locked themselves, and shadows that moved against the light. Margaret Hell had inherited the inn from her grandmother, along with all its secrets. The guest book told stories of its own, names crossed out, pages torn away, and sometimes, in the margins, hastily scribbled notes that made no sense. "Don't stay in room 6, one read. "The mirror watches," said another. Margaret had dismissed these as pranks, the scribblings of bored travelers. But lately, she began to wonder. That evening, as she led Lena to room 6, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. The air felt heavier, like the moments before a storm. The portraits on the walls, faces of strangers from another time, seemed to follow their movement, and when she opened the door to room 6, the mirror on the far wall caught her reflection. Or did it? For a moment, just a breath, she could have sworn she saw someone else looking back. By morning, Lena Carter was gone. Margaret knocked on the door at 7 a.m., carrying a tray of breakfast, freshly baked scones, warm tea, and a folded newspaper. No response. Another knock. Silence. Concerned, she tried the doorknob, but it was locked. A small frown crossed her face. Strange. She always advised guests to leave the doors unlocked for morning service. Fumbling with a spare key, she finally let herself in. The bed was perfectly made. The suitcase was untouched. Lena's phone rested neatly on the nightstand, its screen still glowing from the last text she had sent at 1:37 a.m. A message that simply read, "I know what you did." But Lena herself? Gone. The investigation began immediately. Deputy Sarah Chen arrived first, her flashlight beam cutting through the morning shadows. She was young, ambitious, and thoroughly skeptical of the inn's reputation for strange occurrences. But even she couldn't explain what she found. The room was a puzzle that refused to make sense. Lena's clothes were still hanging in the closet, arranged with careful precision. Her laptop set on the desk, the screen black and cold. A half-empty glass of water stood on the nightstand, lipstick marks on the rim. Everything spoke of someone who intended to return. Deputy Chan's investigation revealed more questions than answers. The windowsill was undisturbed, decades of paint making it impossible to open without leaving marks. The ventilation system was too small for a person to pass through. The floorboards, when tested, showed no signs of secret passages or hidden doors. Margaret searched the room, but nothing was out of place, except for one thing: a single muddy footprint pressed into the wooden floorboards beside the window. Not a pair, just one. The window itself was locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry, no footprints outside. The sheriff was called, of course. Sheriff Tom Davies was a practical man, one who didn't believe in ghost stories or strange happenings. He had seen enough runaways and impulsive disappearances to know that people often left for reasons no one else understood. Sheriff Davies theorized she probably walked out in the night, got cold feet. Maybe she left with someone. But that explanation didn't make sense. Her shoes were still in the room, her wallet, her coat. If she had left willingly, she had done so barefoot and without a single belonging. Sheriff Davies approached the case with methodical precision. He questioned Margaret thoroughly about Lena's arrival, her demeanor, whether she'd mentioned any plans or concerns. He interviewed the only other guest staying at the inn that night, Olivia Parker, a travel writer working on a feature about historic countryside accommodations. The sheriff combed through Lena's personal effects, searching for any clue to her identity or motivation. Her driver's license confirmed her name and a Boston address. Her credit card statements showed a series of normal purchases: gas, food, a new dress the week before. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that suggested she was running from something or to something. Yet something about the case troubled the sheriff. The locked door, the undisturbed room, the strange timing. 1:37 a.m. and Lena's final text was sent. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. The sheriff took samples from the muddy footprint, hoping to match the soil to a specific location. He dusted for fingerprints, finding only those that should be there: Lena's, Margaret's, the cleaning staff's. He even called in a canine unit, but the dogs could only track Lena's scent as far as the bedroom door before losing it completely. People don't just vanish, Sheriff Davies insisted. But in Willow Crest Inn, perhaps they did. Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that Lena hadn't left at all. And then there was Olivia Parker, the guest staying in the room next door, a travel writer passing through on her way to a research project. She claimed to have heard something strange in the early hours of the morning. A voice, a woman's voice, whispering from Lena's room at exactly 1:37 a.m. Not Lena's voice, someone else's. But when Olivia pressed her ear to the wall, trying to make out the words, the voice suddenly stopped, and in its place she heard something else, something chilling. 3 soft knocks, coming from inside Lena's room, a room that by then should have been empty. And so, dear listener, we are left with more questions than answers. Lena Carter had vanished without a trace, and yet something lingers in room 6. A single footprint, a message sent at 1:37 a.m., a whisper in the dark, and 3 ghostly knocks from within an empty room. What happened to Lena Carter? Did she run? Was she taken? Or did she awaken something she was never meant to disturb? The answer lies in the shadows, and I want to hear your theories. Send me your thoughts, your clues, your suspicions. Next time, we'll dive deeper, because one thing is certain. Lena Carter is gone, but she is not forgotten.
Always be with you.
The Vanishing Guest, Episode 2, The Woman in the Mirror. Welcome back, detectives. The case of Lena Carter's disappearance grows stranger by the hour. A woman who checked into the Willow Crest Inn has vanished without a trace. A single footprint, no forced entry, a locked door. But the whispers in the dark tell us that she may not have been alone. Are you paying attention? Because a new clue has just emerged. Lena Carter's phone has been untouched since she disappeared. But early this morning, the phone screen lit up with a new message. A response to the last text she sent, "I know what you did." The reply? A single word. Stop. No name, no number, just a warning. Sheriff Davies frowned at the phone, his weathered face reflecting in its dark screen. The message was impossible. The device hadn't been touched, hadn't been unlocked. Margaret Hell insisted it had been sitting undisturbed on the nightstand since they found it. Yet somehow a reply had appeared. Could be a delayed message, the sheriff suggested, though his voice betrayed his doubt. System glitch happens all the time. But upon inspection, the message was even stranger than it first appeared. The delivery timestamp matched the current time exactly. Not a delayed message from before Lena's disappearance. And most disturbing of all, there was no sender information. No phone number, no contact name, just the word stop, appearing as if from nowhere. The sheriff scrolled through Lena's previous messages, searching for context, for anything that might explain that final exchange. What he found only deepened the mystery. For weeks before her arrival at Willow Crest Inn, Lena had been researching the property. Messages to local historical societies, emails to former guests, notes to herself about dates, names, incidents dating back decades, and one name appeared repeatedly: Eleanor Gray. Sheriff Davies asked Margaret who Eleanor Gray was, but the innkeeper's face paled. She claimed not to know the name, but the slight tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. Margaret Hell, the innkeeper, swears that no one else has access to Lena's phone, yet the message is there. Who sent it? And what did they mean? As the sheriff brushes off this new development, Olivia Parker, the travel writer staying in the next room, stumbles upon another unsettling discovery. In Lena's room, opposite the bed, an antique mirror sits undisturbed, old, slightly fogged, and framed in dark wood. Olivia swears she never noticed it before, but today, as she passes, something makes her stop cold. A reflection that doesn't belong, a shadow that isn't hers, and as she turns, the air behind her is empty. Olivia Parker had always prided herself on her rational mind. As a travel writer who specialized in haunted destinations, she had seen her share of supposedly supernatural occurrences, all of which had perfectly logical explanations. A creaking floorboard mistaken for footsteps, wind through an old chimney that sounded like whispers, power of suggestion turning ordinary shadows into ghostly apparitions. But what she saw in that mirror defied explanation. It happened as she was documenting the room for her article. A quick photo of the antique mirror, oval shaped and edged with dark wood that had turned almost black with age. Through her camera lens, she saw only her own reflection, her face serious, focused. But when she lowered the camera, for just a second, less than a heartbeat, there was someone else, a woman, not Lena, someone older, her eyes wide with what looked like warning or fear. Then nothing, just Olivia's own startled face looking back. She told herself it was a trick of the light, the stress of the situation playing on her imagination. But when she reviewed the photo later, her blood ran cold. In the background, just visible over her shoulder, was a blur, a face caught mid motion, a woman's face, mouth open as if frozen in a silent scream. A coincidence? A trick of the light? Or is something else watching from within the glass? That evening, as Olivia returned to Lena's room to gather more details for her article, she noticed something unusual about the bedside table. The drawer seemed shallower than it should be, given the dimensions of the piece. Her writer's instinct for detail, the same instinct that had earned her accolades for her travel stories, told her something wasn't right. The hidden compartment was clever. A false bottom in the drawer of the bedside table, revealed only when Olivia accidentally pressed against a decorative carving that served as a discreet latch. Inside, tucked away as if someone meant for it to be forgotten, was an old yellowed diary. The name scrawled inside, Eleanor Gray. The year, 1947. The first page reads, "If you're reading this, then it's too late for me." The opening line sent a chill down Olivia's spine. She turned the pages carefully, afraid they might crumble beneath her fingers. Eleanor Gray's handwriting was elegant. The ink faded to a soft sepia. The entries began mundane enough: observations about the weather, complaints about the quality of the inn's food, notes about fellow guests. But as Olivia read on, the entries grew darker, more frantic. "I feel watched all the time, even when I'm alone. I know something is there, waiting, watching. The mirror seems wrong. The reflection isn't quite right. Sometimes I catch movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turn, no one is there. And then, most disturbing of all, last night I woke to find myself standing in front of the mirror. I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't remember walking across the room. But there I was, my hand pressed against the glass, and something on the other side was pressing back." Olivia turns the page, her fingers trembling. The next entry is smudged, ink bled into the old paper. But a single phrase stands out: "Don't look in the mirror after midnight." The moment she reads it, the air around her feels colder, and in the corner of her vision, the mirror catches her eye again. This time, she swears the shadow inside it has moved. Who was Eleanor Gray, and why does her final entry sound so much like a warning? She sees you. Sheriff Tom Davies had spent 23 years in law enforcement. He had seen his share of disappearances: teenagers running away from home, spouses fleeing bad marriages, elderly residents wandering off due to dementia. But Lena Carter's case was different. The more he investigated, the less sense it made. His deputies had canvassed the area, questioning locals, searching nearby woods, checking traffic cameras from the only road leading away from Willow Crest Inn. Nothing. No sightings. No evidence that Lena had left the property at all. And now this diary, this account from 1947 that paralleled the current situation in ways too specific to be coincidence. The sheriff had never been one for ghost stories, but the similarity between Eleanor Gray's experience and Lena Carter's disappearance was undeniable. Both women staying in the same room, both vanishing mysteriously, both connected somehow to that antique mirror. Sheriff Davies instructed his forensic team to examine the mirror more closely, looking for hidden mechanisms, for any sign that it might be more than it appeared. They found nothing unusual, just an old mirror, its silver backing aged and spotted with time. Yet the sheriff couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was key to everything, that it had witnessed not just this disappearance, but perhaps others as well. The question was, how could a mirror be connected to a woman's vanishing? And what did Eleanor Gray know about it 77 years ago? Lena Carter is gone, but her disappearance is beginning to feel eerily familiar. Is this the first time someone has vanished at the Willow Crest Inn? Or is this a pattern that has been repeating for decades? And if so, who will be next? Coincidence? Or something more? Time is running out, detectives. What do you see? The truth is hiding in plain sight. What do you think happened? Send in your theories before the next episode, because the answers are getting closer, and so is the danger. The Vanishing Guest, Episode 3, The Footsteps No One Heard. The case of Lena Carter's disappearance is beginning to unravel. A message appears on her phone long after she vanished. A mirror reflects shadows that don't belong, and a diary, buried for decades, whispers warnings from the past. But tonight, a new clue emerges, one that defies explanation. Are you still with me, detectives? Because things are about to get even stranger. Sheriff Tom Davies finally retrieves the security footage from the inn's hallway cameras. The recording plays in grainy black and white, time-stamped at 1:37 a.m., the last time Lena's phone was used. The footage shows an empty hallway. The door to Lena's room remains shut. No one enters, no one leaves. But there's something else. A sound. Footsteps. The security footage played on a loop on Sheriff Davies' laptop. The grainy black and white image showing the empty hallway outside room 6. Margaret Hell and Olivia Parker huddled behind him, their faces illuminated by the screen's pale glow. The footsteps were unmistakable, slow, deliberate, the sound of a heavy tread on aged wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, moving down the hallway toward Lena's room. But the screen showed nothing. No shadow, no figure, not even a disturbance in the air. The sheriff suggested it could be audio interference or someone walking on the floor above, but Margaret Hell pointed out there is no floor above. That's the top level. Olivia Parker wasn't convinced by the technical malfunction theory. She replayed the footage over and over. The steps were unmistakable. And then she noticed something else. Just as the last footstep fades, Lena's door unlocks. As the invisible footsteps reached Lena's door, the handle moved. Not turned, as if by hand, but shifted. The metal seemed to ripple, like heat rising from hot pavement. And then, without a touch, the lock clicked. The door drifted open just an inch. The sheriff muttered that it wasn't possible, but they had all seen it, all heard it. But Lena never walks out. The door remains slightly ajar, but she never steps through it. Instead, the hallway falls silent once more. A moment later, the door swings closed on its own. What does this mean? Did Lena leave the room at all? Or did something else enter? While the sheriff and Margaret debated technical explanations for the footage, Olivia retreated to her room with Eleanor Gray's diary. The parallels between Eleanor's experience and Lena's disappearance were too strong to ignore, but she needed more context, history, pattern if one existed. An entry in the journal from the same night in 1947 states June 17th, 1947. The night air feels wrong. I hear footsteps in the hall, but when I look, no one is there. Last night I woke to find my door open. I swear I locked it. But worse than that, I think someone was inside my room, watching, waiting. I feel it even now. She spread her research across the bed, printouts of local newspaper archives, notes from her interviews with the inn's staff, photographs of the building's interior. A travel writer by trade, Olivia had always been meticulous in her research. Now, that methodical approach might help solve a mystery. The pattern emerged slowly at first, then with alarming clarity. 1922. A guest named Clara Jenkins reports strange movements in her room's mirror. She checks out early, leaving most of her belongings behind. 1947. Eleanor Gray disappears from room 6. No trace is ever found. 1963. A man named Thomas Webb vanishes overnight. The only clue? His shoes placed neatly beside the mirror. 1985. A college student staying in room 6 for a single night is never seen again. Her journal, found under the bed, mentions something looking back from the glass. 2001. A woman checks in under the name Eleanor. Security footage shows her entering room 6, but never leaving. When staff enter the room, they find it empty. And now, 2024. Lena Carter. The intervals were irregular, but the pattern was clear. Every few decades, someone vanished from room 6, and always the mirror was mentioned in connection with their disappearance. Sheriff Davies was a pragmatist, but he wasn't stubborn. The evidence, however bizarre, demanded attention. He expanded his investigation, ordering his deputies to research the history of disappearances at Willow Crest Inn. He contacted state police, requesting any unresolved missing persons cases connected to the area. And he brought in a technology specialist to analyze the security footage frame by frame. The specialist, Dr. Miranda Weeks, was baffled by what she found. The footage hadn't been tampered with. No digital manipulation, no editing. The door had indeed opened on its own, and the audio hadn't been added later. The footsteps were part of the original recording. But most disturbing was her analysis of the moment before the door closed again. Using advanced enhancement techniques, Dr. Weeks isolated a single frame where something appeared to move across the doorway. Not a person, not even a complete form, just a distortion, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. But within that distortion, the vague suggestion of a face. It could be a compression artifact, Dr. Weeks explained, or light reflecting off dust particles. But her voice lacked conviction. She had seen something in that doorway, something that shouldn't be there. Sheriff Davies ordered the room sealed. No one in, no one out, except for law enforcement personnel. The mirror became the focal point of the investigation. Photographed, measured, examined for hidden compartments or mechanisms. Nothing was found. It was just a mirror, ancient, slightly warped with age, but just a mirror. Or was it? But there was something else, a detail that sent ice through Olivia's veins. In each case, the person who disappeared had been researching previous disappearances. They had come to the inn deliberately seeking answers, just as Lena had, just as Olivia was doing now. She was following the same path, and suddenly the mirror in her own room seemed to loom larger, its reflection a little darker than it should be. The diary's final entries became increasingly erratic, the handwriting less controlled, the ink blotched where Eleanor's pen had pressed too hard against the paper. The fear in her words was visible. I don't dare sleep. When I close my eyes, I hear whispering. They know my name. They're calling me closer, always closer. The last coherent entry, dated June 17th, 1947, ended mid sentence. The mirror isn't a mirror at all. It's a. The rest of the page was blank, as if Eleanor had been interrupted or taken. Olivia closed the diary, her hands trembling slightly. The silence in her room felt heavier somehow, more oppressive, and though she tried to ignore it, she couldn't help feeling that she wasn't alone, that something was watching, waiting. Margaret Hill had been the innkeeper at Willow Crest for nearly 15 years. She had inherited the position from her mother, who had inherited it from her mother before her. 3 generations of Hell women keeping watch over the old inn, keeping its secrets. After the revelation of the security footage, Margaret's composure began to crack. She found herself drawn to room 6, standing outside the police tape, staring at the door as if expecting it to open again. Sheriff Davies noticed her agitation and questioned her more forcefully than before. "What aren't you telling me, Margaret? What do you know about this mirror?" Under pressure, Margaret finally revealed what she knew, or at least part of it. The mirror had been in the inn since its construction in 1897. It had originally hung in the main hall, but after a series of incidents, her grandmother had moved it to room 6. Why not simply remove it entirely? Margaret didn't know, couldn't explain. Her grandmother had insisted the mirror stay, that it couldn't leave the property. She said it was bound to the house, Margaret explained, that it was waiting for someone. The sheriff pressed for more details, but Margaret seemed genuinely confused. The mirror's history had been passed down through whispers and half truths, its purpose obscured by time. All Margaret knew was that guests sometimes complained about room 6, about feeling watched, about strange dreams, about reflections that moved a moment too late, and sometimes guests disappeared, just like Lena Carter. Margaret Hell appeared at Olivia's door, holding out a faded photograph she'd found in the old records room. The image showed the inn as it had been decades ago, the facade virtually unchanged. But it was the group of people standing on the front steps that caught Olivia's attention. 5 women, dressed in the fashion of the 1940s, smiling for the camera. And in the center, unmistakable despite the years separating them, stood Lena Carter. Next time, we dig deeper, and with every clue we find, the danger grows. What do you think happened? Send in your theories before the next episode drops, because soon the truth will no longer stay hidden. The Vanishing Guest, Episode 4, Messages from the Past. The mystery of Lena Carter deepens, and the past refuses to stay buried. A diary from 1947 recounts a story eerily similar to hers. Security footage reveals an invisible presence moving through the inn, and now Olivia Parker has uncovered something chilling, a message from beyond the veil. As Olivia turns to the final pages of Eleanor Gray's diary, her breath catches. The ink is faded, but the words are clear. I hear them whispering. They know I see them. Tonight is my last night. The date, June 18th, 1947. The same date Lena Carter checked into the Willow Crest Inn. Coincidence? Or something much darker? Olivia can't shake the feeling that Lena's fate is intertwined with Eleanor's. And then her phone rings. The phone's screen glowed an eerie blue in the darkness of Olivia's room. No caller ID, no number, just the gentle vibration against the wooden nightstand, insistent, impossible to ignore. For a moment, Olivia considered not answering. In horror movies, this was always the moment when the audience would scream at the protagonist to run, not to engage with the unknown. But this wasn't fiction. This was a real woman, missing, perhaps in danger, and this call might be the only link. She pressed the answer button, her hand trembling slightly. At first, nothing, just the soft hiss of static, like an old radio trying to find a signal. Then, distant, as if speaking from the bottom of a well, "Help me." The voice was female, young, frightened, but something about it wasn't quite right. A hollowness, an echo that shouldn't exist on a digital connection. Olivia called out to the voice, pressing the phone tighter to her ear. The static grew louder, the voice fading in and out like a weak transmission. "The mirror. Don't. At night." Then more clearly, "Find Eleanor." The line went dead. Olivia stared at the phone, her heart pounding. The call had lasted exactly 15 seconds, but when she checked the call log, there was no record, no incoming call, no duration, nothing to prove that she had heard a voice from beyond begging for help. Olivia's journalistic instincts took over. She grabbed her notebook, recording every detail while the experience remained fresh. The time, 1:37 a.m., exactly the same time shown on Lena's phone when she disappeared. The static quality of the voice, the mention of the mirror and Eleanor, the unnatural silence that had followed the call, as if all ambient sound in the room had been momentarily suspended. She knew what Sheriff Davies would say if she reported this: stress, an overactive imagination fueled by ghost stories, and Eleanor's diary. But Olivia knew what she had heard, and more importantly, she knew what it meant. Lena Carter wasn't gone. She was trapped somewhere, and she was trying to reach out. Sheriff Tom Davies had built his career on facts, evidence, things he could see, touch, and measure. Yet with each passing day, the case of Lena Carter forced him to confront possibilities he had always dismissed. The security footage, the unexplained footsteps, the door that opened with no human touch. And now, the photograph, a woman from 2024 somehow appearing in an image from 1947. The rational explanations were dwindling. A look-alike ancestor? Possible, but improbable given the striking resemblance. Photo manipulation? The photograph had been tested. The paper, the chemical composition of the ink, all authentic to the 1940s era. A practical joke. Who would have gone to such lengths, and why? For the first time in his 23 years of law enforcement, Sheriff Davies began to consider the impossible. His deputies noticed the change in him, the way he hesitated before entering room 6, how he would stare at his own reflection in the mirror as if expecting it to move independently, the way he now listened with genuine attention when Margaret spoke of the inn's dark history. The sheriff ordered a complete background investigation into Lena Carter's life: birth records, school transcripts, employment history, anything that would confirm her existence before she arrived at Willow Crest Inn. What he discovered only deepened the mystery. Lena Carter had appeared seemingly out of nowhere just 3 months ago. Her apartment in Boston had been leased under her name, but neighbors reported rarely seeing her. Her job as a historical researcher was conducted remotely, with no in-person meetings. Her social media accounts were sparse, created recently, with few connections. It was as if Lena Carter had been constructed rather than born, a life hastily assembled like a stage set, lacking the depth and complexity of genuine history. And her research focus? Unexplained disappearances at historic inns throughout New England. The morning after the mysterious call, Olivia sought out Margaret Hell. She needed answers, not just about Lena, but about Eleanor Gray, the woman whose diary warned of the mirror's dangers. She found Margaret in the basement archives, already surrounded by dusty records and old photographs, as if she had been expecting Olivia's questions. The back office of Willow Crest Inn was a cluttered space, lined with filing cabinets that hadn't been updated in decades. A single bulb cast yellowed light over stacks of papers, invoices, and logbooks that documented the inn's long history. Margaret's hands trembled as she pulled the old guest book from a shelf. Dust mites danced in the air, disturbed for the first time in years. I haven't looked at this since I took over the inn, Margaret admitted, laying the heavy book on the desk. My grandmother kept the records. She was superstitious about them, said some books shouldn't be opened too often. The guest book was bound in faded red leather, the pages brittle with age. Margaret turned to June 1947, her fingers hovering over the entries as if reluctant to touch them. And there it was, the signature that shouldn't exist. Lena Carter. The handwriting was unmistakable, the same elegant script Olivia had seen on Lena's check in form just days earlier. Same name, same handwriting, separated by nearly 80 years. This can't be possible, Olivia whispered. But the evidence was before her, written in fading ink on yellowed paper. Margaret's face was pale and drawn as she pointed to the page from 1947. Look at the signatures, she said quietly. Not just Lena's. And there, written in elegant cursive directly below Lena's name, was another name Olivia recognized instantly. Eleanor Gray. Margaret watched Olivia's face as the realization dawned. She had been keeping secrets, not just about the mirror, but about a pattern of disappearances stretching back generations. The Hell family had managed Willow Crest Inn since its construction in 1897, passing down not just the property, but the knowledge of what happened in room 6. The mirror had claimed many victims over the decades. Some vanished forever, but others seemed to reappear in different times, their identities shifting, their memories fragmented, their names side by side as if their stories have always been linked, as if one could not exist without the other. And then, as Olivia traces her fingers over the ink, she feels something pressed between the pages. A photograph. It's Lena, standing in front of the inn, her expression frozen in time. But the photo is old, faded, black and white, dated June 1947. And scrawled in shaky handwriting across the back are just 3 words: Find the mirror. Margaret Hell stared at the photograph, her face ashen. My grandmother told stories, she whispered, about guests who came and never left, about a mirror that sometimes showed other places, other times. I thought they were just stories to frighten children. Sheriff Davies was summoned immediately. His skepticism was fading with each new revelation, replaced by a growing certainty that something beyond his understanding was happening at Willow Crest Inn. The photograph was bagged as evidence to be analyzed by experts, but in his heart, the sheriff already knew the woman in the photograph was Lena Carter, somehow impossibly existing in 2 times at once. The question was no longer where Lena had gone, but when. Olivia Parker's research took on a new urgency. She compiled a timeline of the disappearances, looking for patterns, for connections. The interval between vanishings was irregular. Sometimes decades passed, sometimes only a few years. But one detail remained constant. Each disappearance occurred on the night of June 18th, the same date Eleanor Gray disappeared in 1947. The same date Lena Carter checked into Willow Crest Inn. The realization struck Olivia like a physical blow. Whatever had happened to Lena, whatever force had pulled her through time, it might happen again. And if the pattern held, someone else might vanish. Someone who had been researching the previous disappearances. Someone like Olivia herself. As the day progressed toward evening, Sheriff Davies expanded the investigation beyond Lena Carter and Eleanor Gray. Who had built Willow Crest Inn? Why this location? Why did the mirror have such power? The county records revealed that the inn had been constructed in 1897 by Edmund Willow, an eccentric inventor and amateur physicist with an interest in what he called temporal anomalies. His journal, preserved in the local historical society, contained increasingly disturbed entries about weaknesses in the fabric of reality and doorways between then and now. Most disturbing of all were his notes about the mirror in room 6. Not an ordinary mirror, but one he had constructed using a silver backing infused with materials he believed could thin the veil between times. Edmund Willow himself had disappeared in 1903, leaving only a cryptic note: "I must see the other side." He was never found, but guests at the inn at that time reported strange noises from room 6, and a maid claimed to have seen a face in the mirror that wasn't her own. The pattern was older than they had realized, and it was accelerating. The gaps between disappearances were growing shorter. What had once been decades apart now happened every few years, as if the mirror's hunger was increasing, as if whatever lay on the other side was reaching out more desperately. Time is unraveling, the past and present are colliding, and the only way to find Lena Carter may be to step beyond the veil itself. As night approached, Sheriff Davies, Margaret Hell, and Olivia Parker gathered in room 6. The mirror hung innocently on the wall, reflecting their troubled faces. To any casual observer, it would appear ordinary, slightly tarnished with age, its ornate frame darkened by decades of polish. But they knew better. Sheriff Davies proposed destroying the mirror immediately, smashing it, removing it from the inn, breaking whatever connection it had formed with the past. But Margaret warned against such action. Her grandmother had tried to remove the mirror once. The next day, it had reappeared, and her grandmother had been bedridden for weeks, plagued by nightmares of faces pressing against glass, screaming silently for release. Olivia had another idea. Eleanor's diary mentioned a specific time, 1:37 a.m., when the mirror's power seemed strongest. The security footage showed invisible footsteps at that exact time. Lena's last text was sent then. What if they used that moment not to destroy the mirror, but to communicate through it? What if they could reach Lena? It was a dangerous plan. If the mirror could pull Lena from the present to the past, it might do the same to anyone who stood before it at that critical moment. But Olivia was willing to take that risk. Lena's phone call, the desperate plea for help, convinced her that the woman was trapped, conscious, and trying to find a way back. As midnight approached, they prepared room 6 for what might be their only chance to solve the mystery and save Lena Carter. Are you paying attention, detectives? Because the next clue is waiting. But be careful. You might not like what you find. The Vanishing Guest. Episode 5, The Last Clue. Time is running out. The past and present have collided, and the final piece of the puzzle is waiting. We have followed Lena Carter's trail through whispers in the dark, messages from beyond, and the ghost of a woman lost to time. Now, only one question remains. Can we bring her back? Or has she joined the others who vanished before her? Sheriff Tom Davies had never faced a case like this. His training, his experience, his entire worldview rejected the notion of the supernatural. Yet the evidence before him couldn't be explained away. A woman from 2024, captured in a photograph from 1947. Security footage of invisible footsteps. A mirror that seems to connect 2 points in time. He made a decision. Room 6 would be sealed completely. Boarded up, locked, the key destroyed. The mirror would be removed, dismantled, its fragments buried where they could never be reassembled. The sheriff informed Margaret Hell of his intentions, expecting relief. Instead, her face drained of color. "You can't remove the mirror," she whispered. "My grandmother tried. So did her mother before her. It comes back, always. And those who try to destroy it—" She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The implication hung in the air between them. Those who tried to destroy the mirror became its next victims. The sheriff wasn't deterred. Armed with tools, protective gloves, and a team of deputies, he prepared to enter room 6 and end the cycle once and for all. But Olivia Parker intervened. "What if we're wrong?" she asked. "What if destroying the mirror doesn't free those trapped inside? What if it locks them there forever?" It was a possibility the sheriff couldn't ignore. What if, in trying to solve the mystery, they condemned Lena Carter to an eternity of limbo? They needed more information. They needed to understand what the mirror truly was. And the answer, Olivia believed, lay in Eleanor Gray's final diary entry, the one cut short. The mirror isn't a mirror at all. It's a. The diary's final pages had been torn out, whether by Eleanor herself or someone who came after. There was no way to know, but Olivia was certain those missing pages contained the key to understanding the mirror, and perhaps saving Lena. Working methodically through the night, Olivia and Sheriff Davies combed through every inch of room 6, searching for the missing pages. They removed paintings from walls, pulled up floorboards, emptied every drawer and cabinet. Nothing. But then, as dawn approached, Margaret Hell remembered something. A family tradition passed down through generations of Hell women. Each new innkeeper was given a small wooden box with a simple instruction: keep it safe, but never open it. The box had been in Margaret's bedroom closet for 15 years, untouched, almost forgotten. She retrieved it with trembling hands. The wood was dark with age, the brass clasp tarnished. Inside lay a sealed envelope, yellowed with time, addressed simply to "The One Who Seeks Answers." The pages inside were brittle, the handwriting matching Eleanor Gray's diary, and the words written there confirmed Olivia's worst fears and offered their only hope of saving Lena Carter. Eleanor Gray's missing pages revealed a terrible truth. The mirror wasn't just a doorway, it was a trap. A cycle created by Edmund Willow's meddling with forces he didn't understand. Every June 18th, for a week, at precisely 1:37 a.m., the barrier between past and present weakened. Those who stood before the mirror at that moment risked being pulled through, their identities, their lives, their very existence transfigured. Most disturbing was Eleanor's final warning. The mirror feeds on this cycle. With each crossing, the barrier weakens further. If it breaks completely, the times will bleed together. Past and present will collapse. The mirror must be sealed, not destroyed. To break it is to break time itself. Sheriff Davies, Olivia, and Margaret now faced an impossible choice: leave the mirror intact, knowing it would claim more victims, or destroy it and risk consequences beyond their understanding. There was a third option. Eleanor's note suggested that the cycle could be broken if someone willingly returned through the mirror, traveling in the opposite direction of their original journey. But this would require Lena Carter to stand before the mirror in 1947 at exactly 1:37 a.m. and consciously choose to return to 2024. Could they somehow communicate this to her across time? As it approached midnight, Olivia Parker found herself drawn to room 6. Despite the sheriff's warnings, despite the danger, she felt compelled to be there when the clock struck 1:37 a.m. Would the cycle repeat? Would she be the next to vanish? Or would she finally understand what had happened to Lena Carter and perhaps find a way to break the cycle once and for all? Margaret Hell watches from the doorway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "It's been waiting," she murmurs. "It always waits." But Olivia doesn't hesitate. She reaches forward and touches the glass. At first, nothing happens, just the dim reflection of her own face. But then the image distorts, a ripple, a shadow moves where there should be none. And then something knocks. Once, twice, 3 times. And Olivia swears she sees a hand pressing against the other side of the glass. a hand that doesn't belong to her. Then a voice, small, fragile, desperate. It comes from within the mirror, from a place just beyond reach. Help me. The clock hits 1:37 a.m., the exact time Lena Carter vanished. Olivia knows she has only seconds to act. If she hesitates, Lena will be lost forever. But how do you pull someone back from beyond the veil? Sheriff Davies had seen enough. Whatever was happening in room 6 had to be stopped before anyone else disappeared. He rushed forward, pulling Olivia away from the mirror. But it was too late. The glass had begun to ripple like the surface of a pond disturbed by a thrown stone. The reflection was no longer a reflection at all. It showed another room, a distorted version of room 6 as it might have looked decades ago. And standing on the other side, her hands pressed against the glass, as if trapped behind a window, was Lena Carter. Her mouth moved, forming words they couldn't hear. Her eyes were wide with fear, or perhaps warning. Behind her shadows moved, formless, shifting, reaching toward her with impossible limbs. The sheriff's training kicked in. Protect and serve. He grabbed a chair, preparing to smash the mirror, to break whatever connection had been established, but Olivia stopped him. She's trying to tell us something, she insisted, moving closer to the glass again. She knows how to get back. The rippling surface of the mirror began to stabilize, the image of Lena becoming clearer. She held something in her hands, Eleanor Gray's diary, and behind her, emerging from the shadows, another face appeared. Eleanor herself, as she had looked in 1947, her features echoing Lena's in an uncanny resemblance. Lena pressed the diary against the glass. A page was open, words visible but reversed, like looking at a book in a mirror. Olivia strained to read them, to decipher the secret that Eleanor had discovered decades ago. The message was clear. The mirror must be shattered from both sides simultaneously. It was a desperate gamble. If they broke the mirror now, would Lena do the same from her side? Would it free her or trap her forever? But they had no time to debate. The shadows behind Lena were growing, stretching toward her with a malevolent intent. Whatever existed on the other side of the mirror wanted to keep her there. And then it's over. The mirror explodes outward in a shower of fragments as if struck from the other side with tremendous force. Sheriff Davies and Olivia are thrown backward, shielding their faces from the flying glass. When they look up, the room is empty, silent. The mirror's frame hangs on the wall, empty now, surrounding nothing but the faded wallpaper behind it. Lena Carter is gone. Morning comes. The inn is quiet. Sheriff Tom Davies files his final report. No evidence of foul play. Case remains open. His deputies collect the mirror fragments, bag them as evidence. Margaret Hell begins the process of closing room 6 permanently. But something is different. Olivia Parker packs her bags, ready to leave. But before she does, she finds something resting on her nightstand. A single photograph. The same black and white image of Lena Carter that they found in the old guest book. But this time, there's something new. A message written in the corner in faded ink. Thank you. And so, detectives, we reach the end of our mystery. But tell me, what do you believe happened? Was Lena trapped between worlds? Did Olivia free her? Or is she still out there, waiting for someone else to find her last clue? The Vanishing Guest, Episode 6, The Final Truth. We've followed the trail, examined the evidence, listened to the whispers of the past. And now, detectives, it's time to uncover the final truth of Lena Carter's disappearance. Was it paranormal? A time loop? A deception carefully crafted? The moment has come to reveal what really happened at the Willow Crest Inn. The weeks following the incident in room 6 brought more questions than answers. Sheriff Tom Davies struggled to document what he had witnessed. A mirror that showed another time, a woman trapped within it, the inexplicable shattering of glass. His official report remained vague, citing unexplained phenomena and investigation ongoing. But privately, he knew the case of Lena Carter would never be solved through conventional means. The sheriff commissioned a thorough historical investigation of Willow Crest Inn. Records dating back to its construction in 1897 revealed a pattern far more extensive than they had first realized. The disappearances weren't limited to the handful they had discovered. Every few years, someone vanished. Often a researcher, a historian, someone drawn to the inn by its reputation for mystery. Margaret Hell finally revealed the full truth about her family's connection to the inn. The Hells hadn't merely been innkeepers, they had been guardians, keeping watch over the mirror, ensuring it remained within the property, preventing it from claiming more victims than necessary. A duty passed from mother to daughter for generations. We couldn't destroy it, Margaret explained. Those who tried would be the next to disappear. We could only contain it, keep it in room 6, hope that no one would look too closely. But Olivia Parker had looked closely, and what she discovered would finally explain what had happened to Lena Carter. Before we unravel the truth, let's take a look at some of your theories. Some of you believed Lena was trapped between two realities, pulled into the past through the mirror. Others think she was never real at all, just a ghost reliving a tragedy from long ago. And then there are those of you who suspect foul play, that someone, perhaps Margaret Hell or even Sheriff Davies, was responsible for her disappearance. The final piece of the puzzle came from Eleanor Gray's diary. Not the entries themselves, but what lay hidden between the lines. Using specialized techniques, forensic analysts discovered faded ink on pages that had seemed blank. Eleanor's final message, invisible to the naked eye, but preserved by the paper itself. The mirror shows me another time, a future where I am someone else, where I am Lena. The reflection isn't a reflection at all, it's a window. And sometimes, when the hour is right, it becomes a door. Olivia Parker pieced together the truth from this revelation, from historical records, from the photograph with its impossible subject. Eleanor Gray hadn't just disappeared in 1947. She had been pulled forward in time, emerging nearly 80 years later as Lena Carter. The mirror wasn't just a doorway between times, it was a trap, a cycle. Those who looked into it at the wrong moment would be pulled through only to return to their original time later, creating an endless loop of disappearance and reappearance. Lena Carter didn't vanish, not in the way we imagined. The answer was hidden in plain sight all along. Remember the security footage? The door to Lena's room never opened. At least, not in the way we expected. But what if she never left through the door? What if she was pulled somewhere else? Eleanor Gray's diary held the answer. Don't look in the mirror after midnight. It wasn't a superstition. It was a warning. A warning that Lena ignored. At 1:37 a.m., she looked into the mirror, and something looked back. Something old, something hungry, something that had been waiting. But Eleanor had discovered something else, something that explained the mysterious connection between her and Lena Carter. They were the same person, different times, different names, but the same soul, caught in an endless loop. When Eleanor was pulled through the mirror in 1947, she emerged in 2024 as Lena Carter, with fragmented memories and a desperate need to understand what had happened to her. And when Lena vanished from room 6, she reappeared in 1947 as Eleanor Gray, continuing the cycle. The mirror wasn't just a reflection, it was a doorway, one that had been opening and closing for decades. The missing guest? They never left. They were swallowed by the past or pulled into the future, by something lurking between time. And when Olivia touched the mirror, it initiated the shatter that was completed by Lena from the other side, and due to the bend in time, it was a simultaneous break from both sides. When the mirror broke, the cycle ended, and Eleanor's and Lena's souls merged back together in the original time of 1947. And the thank you written on the photograph, that was her farewell. What is known as this: after the mirror shattered, the disappearances at Willow Crest Inn stopped. Room 6 was renovated, the wall where the mirror hung torn down completely and rebuilt. Margaret Hell sold the property 6 months later, unable to continue living with the memories of what had happened there. As for Olivia Parker, she published her article about Willow Crest Inn, a carefully sanitized version that mentioned the historic architecture, the charming countryside setting, the locally sourced breakfast offerings, not a word about vanishing guests or mirrors that led to other times. But she continued her research privately. 6 months after leaving the inn, she discovered a newspaper clipping from 1947, an engagement announcement for Eleanor Gray, who had mysteriously returned after being reported missing for 3 days. Eleanor went on to marry, to have children, to live a long and apparently happy life. The photograph accompanying the announcement showed Eleanor smiling, her arm linked with her fiance's, and on her wrist, a bracelet. The same distinctive silver bracelet that Lena Carter had been wearing when she checked into the Willow Crest Inn in 2024. So, detectives, now you know. Eleanor Gray was pulled into the future, and Lena Carter stepped into the past. And for decades, she was stuck in a story repeating itself over and over again until Olivia set her free.
Goodbye.
There is one final piece of the puzzle, one that explains why the mirror had such power and why it created this cycle of displacement across time. Edmund Willow, the eccentric inventor who built Willow Crest Inn in 1897, wasn't simply constructing a countryside retreat. He was building a machine, a device to observe and perhaps someday cross the boundaries of time itself. His journals, recovered from a university archive years after his disappearance, detailed his obsession with temporal anomalies and his belief that certain locations represented thin spots in the fabric of reality. The mirror was his masterpiece, a window designed to look not just at reflections, but at other times. The silver backing contained unusual materials, substances that Edmund believed could bend light in ways that defied conventional physics. But something went wrong. The window became a door, and Edmund himself was his first victim. On June 17, 1903, Edmund Willow stood before his creation at precisely 1:37 a.m., a time he had calculated as the moment when the thinning was most pronounced, and he vanished. But unlike the others who would follow, Edmund never returned, at least not in a way anyone recognized. Sheriff Davies' historical investigation uncovered one last connection: a caretaker who appeared at Willow Crest in 1943, staying for nearly 40 years, maintaining the property with obsessive care, especially room 6. His name was William Edmund. No known family, no background that could be verified. Just a man who appeared from nowhere, dedicated to preserving a building that seemed to hold special significance for him. The cycle began with Edmund Willow, and perhaps, in a way, it ended with him too. His creation finally broken, his experiment concluded, the barrier between times restored to its proper strength. And with that, we close the case of the vanishing guest. But be careful, because some doors, some mirrors, are best left untouched. Until the next mystery, stay curious, stay cautious, and always search for the last clue. And with that final revelation, we close the case on our first season of The Last Clue. I want to extend my deepest thanks to all of you who have listened, theorized, and journeyed with us through these mysteries. Special recognition for those who have made the Wall of Fame will be posted in a special announcement in a few days, after I review all of the entries. I have to say, your detective skills are remarkable. But just because one mystery ends, doesn't mean the darkness retreats for long. Season 2 of The Last Clue is already taking shape in the shadows. New cases, deeper secrets, higher stakes, and mysteries that will challenge even our most astute listeners. Stay subscribed so you don't miss our return. Follow us on social media, our Facebook page, The Last Clue, a mystery podcast, on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast at The Last Clue, a mystery podcast, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Last Clue Podcast for updates on the premiere date and perhaps some early clues about what awaits. Until we meet again, keep looking beyond the obvious, because in this world, everything is a clue. This is Jessa, signing off. For now. Detectives. First, let me apologize for the long silence. Life threw a few unexpected turns, family events and illnesses that needed attention. But now, we're back, and it's time to close the file on Season 1. You searched, you questioned, and you followed every chilling clue through the halls of the Willow Crest Inn. Some of you came very close, but this time, the truth remained hidden. After reviewing every theory and every guess, I can now reveal there is no winner for this season. No name will be added to the Wall of Fame. Not yet. But don't worry, the investigation isn't over. In just a couple of weeks, Season 2 begins, with even more twists, more puzzles, and hopefully, a winner. And before the new mystery begins, I'll be releasing a special Season 1 compilation, so you can relive every eerie clue and unnerving moment. I truly enjoyed reading your theories, some brilliant, some wild, and all of them fascinating. Keep those detective instincts sharp, because the next mystery is just around the corner, and someone is bound to crack the case. Until then, stay curious, stay watching. You never know what's waiting in the next story.